Hello and welcome to another episode of Property-Pxrn Stars, the premium property podcast brought to you by your hosts David Lindley.
And I'm Matt Giggs.
And today our guest, our star is, well, if you're watching this rather than listening to this, you're in for a treat because he is the most magnificent mustachioed man in the industry at the moment.
He looks like a porn star. That's all I can say.
You've taken the brief far too seriously.
Yeah. He's got the porn star guy.
Well, for anyone who's listening to this, not watching it, our guest today is Simon Gates from Opening the Gates to More Listings. So welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
No, we really appreciate you spending the time here. Do you know, it's funny because you and I were together earlier this week and your name came up in conversation and we were trying to describe what you do. And I find that quite hard because you seem to do so much with data and with marketing and with training and advice and guidance. And then Matt summed it up and said he turned stats into stories. It's like, that's really good.
That's my elevator pitch right there.
Did he make that up or did you make that up?
Sounds like something he would say. But I think and I've told this story many times, but when I first met you, when I had the coaching with you, you were like, I get it, Simon, you're very data heavy, but you need to think of the other side of the brain and how can we work that data to be more story led. And that was the light bulb moment for me because I went down the stats route because that's the way my brain works, but also I was very young at the time. Well, I wasn't that young, I was mid-20s, but I looked very young, didn't have the tash. And I think that when I went into people's living rooms, I thought they were looking at me going, you're too young to sell my house. So I wanted to really impress them with like, I know this property market, I'll know the stats better than anyone else. Even if they've been doing the job longer than I've been born, no one's going to out-knowledge me in this market. So I think I went quite far down that route. And then Matt said, we'll move that into the stories.
So how do you do that then? How do you turn stats into stories?
So a good example, let's use some Rightmove statistics from recently. So Rightmove have done 6 years worth of research. Whether you love them or hate them, they've got billions of pieces of data, right? And they looked at 6 years worth of research and found that properties that reduce their asking price are 10% less likely to go on to sell. And if they do go on to sell, they take twice as long. So I'm just imagining Matt's like cogs now going, how you can turn that into a story. But it's like, okay, Mr. Seller, you want to test the market at 525 rather than the evidence supporting 500. If we try at 525 and end up reducing the price, you're going to be 10% less likely to sell, which means you might not get that one you want to buy in that village with the school catchment, whatever. And actually it's going to take twice as long to sell. You said you wanted to get moved by spring. So that's, in my opinion, a way of turning data, stats into a story, which then shows the person looking to move home, yeah, okay, I get that. Because it gives them a real life example. And I think, again, whether you love them or hate them, when you can say, look, 6 years worth of research from Rightmove has shown this, it's a lot different to the estate agent who goes, yeah, but you don't want to put it on at that price. And the seller's thinking, yeah, but you would say that because you just want a commission.
Yeah.
For example.
It's really interesting, isn't it? And we had Chris Watkin on the podcast a while ago, and he was talking about this, the way you have your left brain, right brain. I can never remember which side is which, is logic is emotion. But the way that he phrased it, which really resonated with me, is he said that your emotional side makes a decision and you have to have the logical side to kind of back it up and sign off the decision that you've made. And you can justify all sorts of purchasing decisions on the strength of that. But you need to have both. I think I'm wired quite like you. Like I quite like my stats, but you have to bring it back to emotion. And Matt's right. Stats with stories. So
with the emotion part there, I'll probably get this terribly wrong, but have you heard, I think it's referred to as the endowment effect. Have you ever heard of that? I don't know if we spoke about it recently. So there's a really good like infographic for it, but there's like a Harvard study done. And they basically said to half the people, right, David, you own that glass. How much would you sell it for? And then it's Matt, you don't own that glass. How much would you buy it for? And the people who owned the glass in their head would always say more. And it's the exact same thing in the property market we're in at the moment. You've got sellers wanting too much money and you've got buyers wanting to get a cheaper price. That's emotion, but actually there's still some kind of logic in there in terms of data and stats where the buyer wants this. And again, you've got the we fear loss twice as much as we're kind of excited about gain, right? So if someone's got a house on at 500 and the buyer offers 490, the seller sees a 10 grand loss, but actually double in their head. So it's like 20 grand loss. So it's actually easier to get the buyer up to 495 than the seller down to 495 because they see the fear of loss as double, if that makes sense.
Does make sense. Okay, so we've gone kind of quite deep, quite quickly. Let's just zoom out for a second. So what's your story of how you came to start opening the gates to more listings? Because you've been an estate agent, you've had several different roles in the industry. Talk us through that journey.
Yeah, so I think I've only ever heard myself and Perry Power say this, but we grew up wanting to be estate agents.
Do you know, it's funny you say that. You listen to loads of podcasts and everyone says, I fell into it.
Yeah,
the amount of times you hear that is astonishing.
You see, I don't have a story of being a failed footballer.
I love a jab.
I just wasn't.
Right.
I wasn't even good. I wasn't even good enough to be a failed footballer. So yeah, no, I always wanted to be an estate agent, and I did it. Much to my mum and dad's, they weren't too happy about it. But yeah, I did that from the age of 16 and worked my way up the career ladder. I was running a branch, and when I went to see Matt, so I got recommended to Matt by a secretary who'd known him for many years, and I felt like I could go on and do more. Matt saw something in me in terms of data, which then led me into Sam Hunter and Home Search.
Well, I saw more than that, actually, because there weren't many people that worked in an employed role for a company who invested personally in coaching. In fact, I've coached for 20 years and I've never, ever had another person before or after.
Yeah, wow, okay.
Who went and invested their own money, which they'd pay after tax, in 4 hours of coaching. I think that says a lot from the off. So there's more than just, I saw that and thought, wow, this guy's got something. And then there was, obviously, you lent very heavily on knowledge, which I don't think is a bad thing either.
You just reminded me of that VAT I would have paid, which I couldn't claim back.
Yeah.
I can see something brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I paid out my own pocket. I took holiday to go and do it, and the big outcome from that initially was conversion rate went up, which was more sales, more revenue, more profit, and it actually meant I hit my annual target to get a bonus. And then straight after that I went into the world of home search with Sam, spent 3 years there, and towards the end of my time there I would like to think offering a lot of value outside of just the home search platform, so around Google Chrome extensions, property data, direct mail, social media content, and agents started approaching me saying, why don't you do this yourself? I was like, why would I do that? I was very happy in an employed role, looked after well, and then in the end so many people said it, I was like, maybe I should do something. And then 31st of January of 2023 I handed in my notice, and it's just interesting, right, because it was a real measure of Sam as a person, because he was made up for me. And he said, amazing, like, you've got to go do it, support you fully. What can I do to support you? And then, and that was 8 months ago when we were recording this. And
I feel like a proud dad. I'm not sure that's because I'm a lot older than Simon, but I don't know, how long ago was it when we had that coaching session?
Early 2018.
And there you go. Yeah.
And what's that been like then, that transition from employed to your own business? What's that been like?
I actually don't think it's been that difficult, and in one sense. And the reason I say that is I treated the branch that I ran like my own business, and I think that is a really, really rare thing. Like, I really did. I worked for a multi-branch independent, but I really treated it like it was my name above the door in every aspect. And it was really, really hard to leave that role. And it was the same at Home Search. I treated it like my business, and people used to say to me that they thought like I co-owned it or something. That would have been very nice. And so I think the thing in terms of going into like self-employment, like a lot of estate agents are following that route at the moment, is you're used to getting the pay on one particular day, and that's just evaporated. So like even now I'll get different days where I have pay come in. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, I've had over 50 Google reviews, I've worked with over 100 estate agents, I'm doing things like this, which is amazing. Yet one day I'll just go, people could just stop working with me tomorrow. And then you wake up the next day and you get an amazing message from someone saying, been listening to your podcast for months and months and months, I'd love to work with you. And I've never met that person, never spoken to them.
It's quite satisfying, isn't it?
Like those messages, when you just get them out of the blue, they're unbelievable.
That's kind of one of the signs that you're doing something right. I know that I've had clients recently that I've started mentoring, and they've been watching videos for like 4 or 5 years. You're like, wow, that's a long time.
Like, I stalked you a lot.
Well, you know.
And I think that's a good example of like, and again, obviously we're kind of talking about the premium end of the market in this
100%.
podcast, but I think there's a
segue.
lot of similarities. So I think I was on LinkedIn, I was seeing your content. I'd said to Helen about wanting to advance myself. She said, you've got to check him out. Went on your website, looked at lots of different content videos. And then actually, I remember an event we were both at in late 2017 at the O2. There was lots of some of your old colleagues from the Countrywide days who worked in the same business as me coming up saying hello to you, etc. And I was too nervous and shy at the time in late 2017 to say hello.
Struck with that.
Yeah, I was like,
He's on socials more than I am.
I was like, oh, hello, I see you online. Didn't say anything. I think walked past you, and then it would have been a few months later where I picked up the phone or sent an email and said, let's do something. I think
that tells you a lot about the reach that you can have on social
Yeah,
channels and the fact that don't always rely on someone liking or commenting.
That's it.
You've got that immediate understanding of who's watching and listening, because you really don't. And it's a quick example. I've been on YouTube a lot. I've launched my YouTube channel and new website to come on the training and mentoring side. But Saturday morning, about 4 weeks ago, I woke up. Sorry, it's about me just for a second. And I had wanker and arsehole on, sorry, I shouldn't really swear, on my YouTube,
one of my
videos. I liked your disguise though, you know. And I thought, oh, well, you know, it is what it is. And I don't really get too bothered by that stuff. And then later in the day, I popped to Waitrose, grabbed some bits and pieces, and there's a guy in there who's 21 called Ollie. And he made the point of coming up and going, I follow you on TikTok and Instagram. I love your content. I'm not looking to be an estate agent, but I love the production. And I'm learning about social media and stuff. And I think what we're sort of trying to encourage people to do, especially if they're going self-employed, and I think you started the journey of personal branding a few years ago now.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've transitioned quite smoothly into going alone. And I think if anyone's watching this, just because it's a data kind of thing that you've done and you've gone from home search to doing your own thing, opening the gates, what you should learn by that is the fact that you should be putting yourself out there sooner and going and finding your niche, your passion, and sharing that wisdom and experience and knowledge to your market and building up your audience.
And just on that, the like personal brand thing, there was no intention of me doing what I'm doing today. It was just Sam said to me when I joined Home Search, he was like, you grow, we grow, we grow, you grow. And he actually said he works for me, not the other way around. And I thought, yeah, it's just a throwaway corporate-y comment. Genuinely meant it. And he said at the start, where do you see yourself? I was like, I want to be on a stage. I want to be presenting to estate agents. I want to be doing stuff like this. He was the one who told me to launch my own podcast, which sounds crazy when he's got his own podcast. It could arguably be competition. But he just,
that's a growth mindset. That's a 100%. Collaborative mindset. Yeah. And I think this is where if you look at the top 5% in our industry, they all possess those same behaviors and mindsets where it's not about me, it's about we. And that's a great shout out to Sam Hunter on that. So going into that realm of going into your own business, kind of re-picking up where David was at before I interrupted, how much kind of tension did you have kind of going, this is like, whoa, this is it?
Yeah, I think like I'm a really logical person with the whole data thing. But I also, if something feels right, it feels right. So following you for ages, very logical, looking at everything you're doing, and then one day, bang, do it. Yeah. Same with quitting my job and going to Home Search. Very, very logical person, but I've told this story many times. Sam rang me up one day and went, "G'day, mate, do you want a job?" And I quit. That's ridiculous to just quit a career like that. And with this, I'd had a few agents say things, and I was thinking in my head, okay, well, if 10% of the ones who said they'd work with me, could I pay my bills, for example? That kind of thing. And then just before Christmas, I had lunch with someone, and they were like, "You should do this." And they probably badgered me and they'll know who they are when they listen and watch this. They badgered me every day, I think, in January. Have you done it yet? Have you done it? Have you done it yet? And then literally the last day in January, I said to my girlfriend, "I'm ready, I'm going to quit." And it was at that point that I registered on Company's House, got a website, domain, etc. Because I had people say to me, "Oh, you've been planning this ages," going back to your personal brand thing. The podcast was over a year old. I'd set up a Facebook group that got several hundred members. And I was like, well, actually, if you look at the date I incorporated the company, got a website domain and everything, it was in February. So I'd quit January 31st and launched on 1st of March. So February was the month of, oh my God, I've quit my job. I now need to get this going. But I think as well on that, if there's any agents who are like listening, watching this, thinking about going into the higher end, is what's the saying? Ready, fire, aim. Because I knew there would be clients, but I could have spent February and March in silence and not let anyone know what I was doing. But I just put out there on socials, I'm doing my own thing, get in touch if you want to find out more. And by the end of March, I had a bit of revenue coming in, which obviously eased my stress, but I had that revenue coming in. But I could have wasted March making sure I had the logo right, the website right, all these different things, and then no one would know who I am. So I think it's the same thing with the higher end of the market. You know, some of the guests you've had on, like Elaine talking about staging, Simon Hawksley with his high production video, James Scudder does some amazing stuff. But using James Scudder as an example, he does some unbelievable high production filming, like on a jet ski, looks really nice and stuff. But actually, he would go out door knocking. He would do the old school direct mail. He would pick up the phone and do that like nitty gritty, boring stuff. So yeah, I think it was very much get started with it. And just again on the data point, it's funny because when you sort of say data, it sounds quite boring, particularly if you're not that way inclined. But you think of just like Amazon, YouTube, Netflix, Facebook, like all these things, it is all revolved around data.
Yeah.
So you just got to turn that data again into stories and make it more interesting.
And I think that there's so it's funny you say about data and making it interesting, because like you, I like my data and I spend quite a lot of time in 20EA's insight system. And I was talking to a company this week and I was looking at them in their marketplace, and this company, 3-office company, absolutely killing it in the residential market. You raise the price threshold up to, in this case, it was £750,000 and above, and they were nowhere to be seen.
Right.
Like, this is crazy. You're leaving so much on the table. I worked it out. There's about £250,000 easily, conservatively, worth of fees there that they're missing out on if they're just a fraction of that marketplace. And they're not there. And I don't know whether it's that they don't know that market's there because they don't see the data, or do they not feel it? I think it's really interesting. Like, do you have conversations with agents about their whole strategy from a data point of view, or are you very tactical about this house and its history and how to win that particular instruction, or do you come at it from both angles?
Yeah, it's a variety of ways of looking at it. And just with what you were saying there, the way my brain went in terms of like strategy, if an agent came to me and said, I want to look at that upper quartile of the market where I'm missing out on, I want to slice that £250,000 worth of fees each year. One of the first things they can do is, without needing to spend loads of money, is to go on to Rightmove, go on to Zoopla, whether you advertise on those portals or not. There's loads of free data on there of full addresses that have tried to sell in the past. Yeah. So you quite easily just look back 6 months, 12 months, 5 years ago and write to someone and say, saw you on the market a couple of years ago. Do you still have an appetite to move? I'd love to have a conversation. That's so simple to do that. And if you wanted to take it a step further, you could pay £3 to Land Reg, find out who the owner is and match it up and address it to them. But on that as well, the amount of agents I've spoken to, it's funny, I can think of 2 or 3 occasions where this happened where I've been in person and I do this kind of technique. And I remember one particular person, and they started going like this on their laptop. And I kind of was like, what are you doing over there? And they're like, no, it doesn't matter. I was like, no, what are you doing? They'd type the address into their CRM and they're like, that person is in our CRM somewhere. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so we've drawn from the market with another agent a few years ago, but they're in your CRM, whether they've inquired about a house, whatever. I was like, cool. So don't send them a letter, don't door knock them, ring them up. You have the telephone number, have a conversation with them. Yeah.
We were saying you said the devil's in the detail. I think the devil's in the data because they are there, and that's what's so powerful. That's why we work on a combined lifecycle CRM system purely for that reason, to build the biggest database we can in that premium market and then mine it.
I think, again, going back to James Scudder, a conversation I've had with him is, if we just said council tax band F, G, H and I, let's say, and what's that sort of top 10% of the market, someone like James, his sole kind of view is, all the marketing he does is, let's say there's 5,000 chimney pots in his marketplace that are in those council tax bands, get the name and telephone number and email address of every single person who owns those properties. That's what the marketing is, because once they're in your database, you own it. and you can then just nurture the hell out of them. But I think there's too much transactional thought process in this industry, isn't there? Can I earn money from them today?
Yeah.
But actually, if I can book a market appraisal with someone who owns a multi-million pound property, if they're not selling today, great, nurture them. But also, I would say someone who owns a multi-million pound property probably knows other people in the area who own multi-million pound properties. So you ask for recommendations, referrals, etc.
Well, actually, you've said a few things there which answers the question that I was going to ask you, which was, if you were to start out a premium estate agency today, what are the kind of things that you would do? You've mentioned some of them there, so maybe I've stolen your thunder a little bit with that question.
No, I think so. I think there's multiple ways to do it. So one, the properties that are already for sale are, it's an overused phrase, but the lowest of low hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. So the things that are currently for sale, and I think I'm stealing one of Sam's lines from his podcast, but overpriced and undermarketed. There are so many properties that fall into that category. Like the amount of multi-million pound properties I see in different parts of the country where I'm on Rightmove and the other portals speaking to agents, and there's no video tour, for example. And you think this is a multi-million pound property in 2023.
Yeah. How
does it not have a video tour? I think the stat is by the end of this year, 82% of internet traffic will be video. So why have they not got a video on this? Very randomly, earlier today, Rightmove put on Instagram, Mary Berry's house. Is that how you say it? From the Bake Off?
Yeah.
It's on at 3.5 million, 2 agents, dropped 250 grand. No video tour on it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Now, you could, there's a few Google Chrome extensions I think we've spoken about that can help with this. You can see the price changes, status changes. But again, if it was a few £1,000,000, I'd be paying money to £3 to land reg, finding out the owner's name, writing the address, stamp on it, coloured envelope, because there are amazing systems out there. But in the world we live in now, so many agents are using all these same systems and sending out letters at the same time saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you stand out from everyone else? So the ones that are currently for sale, undermarketed, overpriced, there's lots of ways you can do that. The withdrawn I've said about, but I've just worked on a direct mail campaign with an agent I work with, and she's looking to go into the upper quartile of the market. She sold loads of property past couple of years, probably average value of a few hundred grand, wants to go nearer the million. And it's going to be a direct mail campaign to council tax bands F and above in her area. And I'm from Buckinghamshire, so let's just say it's called the Buckinghamshire Premium Market Update. And it's called a new initiative looking to sell luxurious properties. You have been handpicked as one of the top 10% properties in the county. If you'd like me to come out and give you an overview on where your property sits in the market today, value-wise, your equity, what improvements you could do to improve value and saleability, I'd love to have a chat with you. So there's no, do you want a free, no obligation valuation?
Yeah.
Right? It is, do you want to have a chat about how we can maximize the value and saleability of your home? Because who doesn't want to improve the value and saleability of their home? So many letters, leaflets are all about, do you want a free valuation if you're looking to sell tomorrow? 90% of people are not selling tomorrow.
No, it's a long game.
It's a long game.
Why do you think agents don't do what you just said?
I think a lot of agents, again, in the world we live in now with tech, automation, AI being a big thing, they want everything to be simplified, easy, automated. But I think the best agents I work with will find ways to automate stuff and have really good processes, but they'll find something that has a little bit of friction. So like writing an envelope and putting a stamp on it, someone will go, that's going to take me too much time to do that for 10 houses. And I go, okay, if you're thinking that, your competition are definitely thinking it, so they're not going to do it. Do it. So I think, most just want the easy route on that.
How often are they doing, in that example there with the update, how often are they doing it?
I'd be saying to a quarterly update because, again, this is something that works really well in direct mail. It should work well in social media and vice versa. So, for example, I have something called a dream home campaign and a dream price campaign. And that could be winter, spring, summer, autumn. So we've just come into autumn, and it could be a postcard or a social media, and it says, if I could get X this autumn, I would sell my home. DM me your figure. That's a direct mail campaign. That's a social media campaign. And I've had numerous estate agents who have booked multi-million pound valuations because they've literally put on their Instagram story, like I just said, if I could sell my house for X this autumn, I would put it on the market, or whatever the exact script is, DM me. And people going, yeah, if you get me £2 million. James Scudder is a very good example. He's getting too much airtime on this. But James is a good example. He put that on his social media And I actually think he was on a stag do or in a wedding in like Malta or something, very randomly. Because I said to him, "Why are you messaging me at this time of night?" But I'd said to him about that. He did it, and it got results.
That's awesome. And then to ask the inverse of that question, what mistakes do you think that are agents making, that if agents are looking to win more premium business, what mistakes are they making that's preventing them from doing so?
I think part of it is they probably think they can get away with doing what they would do on a more normal listing. So yeah, let's take the photos ourselves, let's do our floor plan, things like that. So I think that they don't realise that actually those homeowners do want to pay a higher fee, and they do want high production. They are going to go shop at Waitrose. They are going to drive, a German car, for example, on that. And I think as well, fees. I had this conversation with an agent the other day where they were like, well, at £1 million, so let's say their average fees at 1%, for ease of maths for me. They go, yeah, we're 1% agents. If we sell something at 300 grand, it's a £3,000 fee. But at £1 million, I'd do it less than 1%. And I was like, why would you do that? Well, because money wise, I could charge 7.5, £8,000. It's still almost triple what my normal fee is.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the mindset you're going in with. And obviously you're big on mindset and belief, and I definitely would have thought that back in the day. I would have gone, oh, forget the percentage fee, actual money. But actually, again, we had this conversation when we recorded the other day. You said that I think the difference between a guild agent and a fine and country agent back in the day, and you said the difference in percentage terms of what the higher end of the market charge versus the more normal end.
Yeah, it was like 0.4%. But more accurately, because I used to use that figure, but it was more accurate with Simon Ledbetter did this Voice of the Agent survey, and you can see he's broken it down by price point that shows where you are in the normal residential market, what average fees are, and so it's interesting actually. Right at the bottom of the market, it goes up because you have a lot of fixed fees, and then it comes back down again for where there's the most competition for properties in that residential average property price marketplace, if you like, 250, 300,000 pounds. And then the further up the market you go, the higher the percentage fees are. And that's why I'm so passionate about the premium markets, because you can buy in the high value with the high percentage and it becomes really lucrative. And
on the premium market, again, you just made me think of something which we just do not do in this country, but the buying agent side. So I can think of an agent who, to cut a long story short, sold a house for someone, and that person, or they bought through her, I can't remember which way around it is, but the son was struggling to find somewhere. He had a very healthy budget of £3.5 million, wanted to live in a Surrey sort of direction, couldn't find anything. She then wrote to several properties on his behalf, and it basically said, dear residents, got a client called Matt and Melissa looking for XYZ. They've got a few children. They want a bit of acreage for a horse, whatever. And there's no fee for you to pay. We are retained by the buyer. And they had half a dozen sellers ring up and go, is that legit? Like, if we sell our house, we don't have a fee to pay. He went, yeah, I'm paid by the buyer. So he went out to appraise a few of these properties, didn't go anywhere because it wasn't the right property for that person. But she did sell one of the houses to that person and charged them 2% plus VAT to the buyer. So he made £70,000 plus VAT from monetizing the buyer, not the seller.
That's astonishing.
And I think, again, that multi-million pound market, buyers will much more happily pay fees because you're
doing all the legwork.
Yeah, and you're going to it's a bit like the story you've told of in your early days at Giggs & Co. and that London thing. Yeah, 100%. So I think that when someone's exiting their house and they're perhaps wanting to be cheaper on fee when selling because they've exited that, whereas the purchase at the higher end of the market, they're excited. That's like, I'm going to be in this home for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I think they're more likely to actually pay a fee there, particularly if you can source the whole market, because we all know Rightmove is showing a very, very small percentage of the market, whereas actually the best agents have got a mailing list, a database, they've got pocket listings, etc. So yeah, I think it's a big, big market that's missed.
Because I know that Perry Power talks about this. I remember he used to talk about it quite a lot, this onward negotiation service. But why don't more agents do that then?
Good question. Why don't more agents not do it? Because it's out of the norm. We're just so slow to change in this industry, aren't we? You think of how far this industry's come along during the COVID years. Like, it went forward probably 10 years in the space of 2, yet we're still so far behind. So I think I'm a really good example, because having gone from a estate agency into a proptech business, I could not believe how far behind I was on like the tech side of things. So, I mean, this sounds crazy, but for example, like printing off an invoice and then hole punching it and putting it into a folder. and emailing it as a PDF to a solicitor. And I was like, that's actually such a waste of paper. And why don't I email that trackable to a solicitor so that when the solicitor says, I never got the sales memorandum, you go, you bloody did, because I've tracked the email and I know you opened it. So for example, I have tracking on my emails. So I know when someone clicks a link, I know when they open it. And Preach converted the whole life cycle thing. It's telling you who to ring because people are interacting with certain bits. So yeah, going back to the question, yeah, I think we're nervous of it, and also not thinking we can charge a fee for it. How many things do we not charge for in this industry that we should charge for? Like, you think it's crazy that most we only charge when we sell a house?
I think the biggest shift's going to happen in the next 5 years, even bigger than the last 5. I think if you look at why people don't do it, it's possibly because they're not motivated. They're not self-motivated. We've probably got the wrong people in the wrong industry. Too many of the wrong people in the wrong industry. If you think about value-led estate agency, so people that are going to help out on the onward, they're going to spend more time with the client on their sale, they're going to create staging, they're going to do all of these things. That's someone who's completely invested in the whole process, who understands the outcome and how to get there. I think we've got to attract more people to the industry who are of that ilk, who have the mindset, they are self-motivated, they understand why they need to do these things, as opposed to the employed mentality that we've perhaps lent on for many, many years in a stage, because it's been driven by corporate, perhaps even independent agents recruiting and employing people, a bit like ourselves. You want people to do a job. Actually, the consumer doesn't want you to do a job anymore. They want full service. They want someone that they trust. They want to be able to talk to you. They want to be able to feel that they've got your time. Those things really matter. And I think what we spoke to our last guest about, Adam Lascelles, is how you bring more people into the team, as in people that can collaborate to get someone to their outcome. And I think what you're talking about is exactly the same. And I think agents that are grasping the fact that the future is in that region rather than in the region of desperately trying to achieve a listing, which in this market with the first agent is unlikely to sell, more than likely to sell, it makes no sense, you know. So I think over the next 5 years, the more companies that are looking to create self-employed opportunities, start businesses with people and bring people in to help achieve the vendor's outcome and look at onward negotiation, those guys are now starting to really innovate.
So on something you said there, and self-employed and the collaboration piece, I've got a story of a friend, one of my best friends bought a property in London a few years back with another friend. I've strongly recommended he didn't buy it, but he thought he knew better, even though I had a few years industry experience behind me. I'm sure we've had that. And he bought this place, I think Help to Buy, brand new, other builds going on around it. I was like, what are you doing? Like, if you try and sell that second hand, no longer Help to Buy, you've got other new builds happening around it, and then the market dropped for flats in London because of COVID and stuff. And he's taken a hit on it. But he put it on the market with a self-employed model, and they told him what he wanted to hear rather than what he needed to hear.
Right.
And it just kept going on and going on. And he's like, Simon, this is costing me money and it being empty. It's not rented out. Could you recommend someone? I was like, hallelujah, you're finally taking my advice. So I recommended him to someone, and agent got involved and told him what he needed to hear rather than what he wanted to hear. And he also charged a higher fee. And my friend was going, well, you're telling me to alter the price. You're telling me you're a higher fee. Why am I going with you? He said, because I'm going to get you to the finish line. And he said, not only that, you're not just employing me, but when you employ me to list your home, I'm going to contact the other local agents because I collaborate. And I'm going to say, we've got this property at this price. If you have any buyers, we'll split the fee.
Yeah.
Now, the best part of the story is this last bit. And I can't remember if I've told either of you this before. He did that. He got the listing. He collaborated. And he sold it to another agent's buyer and split the fee. Which agent do you think had the buyer?
Guy that already had
The original agent.
My God.
Stop it.
Yeah.
So what's the story there? How had he not done that? How had he not put it
Because
together?
so I can't remember the exact pricing, but it was roughly, let's say, 525, 550. So at that price, he didn't have anyone. But then it comes at, let's say, 500, the right price, different price bracket. And he's had, I don't know, an email, a text, a WhatsApp come through. I don't know how the agent does it. And he's gone, God, if that's 500, I'll probably just register someone who would buy that. So let's say that agent charges 2%, the second agent, and the seller's going, well, the other guy said it'd be 1%. It's like, well, you're paying 1% no matter what. And I think Simon Hawkes had said this, but it's like, great news. For the extra 1%, I'm opening up to every estate agent in this area.
Yeah.
So you're not just getting me, you're getting everyone.
Yeah. On that point, why do you think more agents don't collaborate that way? Is it because there isn't enough fee there to share?
Yeah, the fees aren't good enough, are they? Really? Like, you think average fee, they're not good enough to split fees.
Do you think they're going up now? I mean, it's a bit generalist question, but I honestly think that people are now starting to look and go, do you know what? I just get this sense that if you looked at fees in 2 years,
I think if it's a tougher market,
see it going up again.
Well, so tougher market. So what we've got, I know obviously like 21, 22 were unicorn years, but what we're going to have 20% less transactions in 2023. You've got 20% less transactions. You've got to make your money back somewhere. It's a bit like the tenant fee ban several years ago. Where can we make that money back? But Rightmove did a webinar recently, and I can't remember the exact stats off the top of my head, but it was staggering that majority of the industry voted on a poll that they charged less than 1%. And only, I'm going to say it was about 10% charge 1.5% or higher.
Why do you think that is?
I think we haven't improved enough as an industry. So you think now, like video and stuff, how many other industries have been doing video for many, many years before us? And it's a bit like let's use cars as an example. You book your car into a garage, and even years ago, they'd film a video going, hey, this is the issue with your car, Mr. Gates, da-da-da-da-da. And you're like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Why are estate agents not doing that sort of thing? So,
and I think it's almost a double whammy for our industry as well, because I think it was James Scudder actually. He's getting too much airtime. We'll invoice James for this. Yeah. But he was saying that the videography is an investment in him, in his brand, in the area, because he is presenter led. It's his face, it's his brand, and obviously it's for the property. But then that is what's going to attract his next instruction, because the owners of similar houses will want to sell with an agent who sells similar local houses.
I think so many estate agents look at everything as a cost.
Yes.
Like you just said. So James is going, okay, it's an initial cost to do that video and put it live, but he's saying it's a long-term investment, like you said, because actually how much more business is he going to attract to it?
Yeah.
And for example, if he has 10 people view that house and 5 of them have a house to sell locally, I say, well, actually, a lot of the investment you made in that video has brought buyers to that house who have a house to sell locally.
Yes.
I think too many agents don't see it that way. And people say to me a lot, oh, I see this event, that event, that event. I'm going to all these events, paying to be there or taking time out of my day. And I like to go to and build relationships, add value, etc. But from a selfish point of view, I'm taking time out of my day and I'm seeing it as an investment of build relationships. Like coming here today, like it's an absolute pleasure to be here. But from a selfish point of view, someone's probably going to listen to this podcast at some point and go, I've never heard of that guy. That's interesting. Yeah. Go follow what I do. And maybe very, very far down the line, there might be business we have from it. It's not the intention I've come here, but that will be a byproduct.
That's that long-term mindset, isn't it? It's that long game. You know why you're doing this, know what you're trying to achieve in the future. It's not about next week's result. And I think that's where estate agents, I think, that are, because in a year, it's tough to achieve a lot. In 5 years, it's a lot easier, So actually, let's work down 5 years. Where do we need to be in 5 years? 2.5%? Okay. What does that look like? Let's work our way back from there. What does the actual experience need to be? If there was a wow service, what does that actually need to look like across the journey? It's kind of like, okay, this is how we're going to get there. And actually being brave enough to take the market. Ian Story was another guy we had on. He went from low fees to high fees. So the same guy just went, no, I know. And it's completely down to the fact that he had a vision, a passion for the market. He knew what service he needed to deliver. That's how I'm going to do it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are sitting on the edge of increasing their fees, but it's just that bit of courage to know why they need to do it and what is it they need to do in return.
I guess it's, again, when you've got a market where transactions are dipping, estate agents immediately go, oh my God, I need to cut costs. And I use this in a webinar with 20EA. I use the golf analogy. I know you don't play golf from our podcast recording.
Waste
I know,
time.
terrible, but obviously this will relate to you. But I'd said that in the winter months, the ball doesn't go as far.
Yeah.
It's windier, it's rainier.
Yeah.
So you've got to hit a 5-iron rather than a 6-iron.
Yeah.
Well, if there's 20% less transactions, you've got to invest more money. You've got to up your fees because it's a colder market. That's kind of analogy I use. So yeah, I think agents go, oh my God, I need to get houses on because I need to keep the revenue coming in. And just on the fees, 3 things which I'm completely R&Ding. They're not original to me, but that's kind of how I've made a business of stealing ideas from people. You've mentioned Perry. So him doing his price promise guarantee. So for example, he charges 2%, and if you take 2% off your asking price, I'll reduce my fee by 2%. So actually he's reducing it from 2% to 1.96%. Genius. And then performance enhancement fee. For every grand I get you above asking, I will charge you £200. Again, enhancing the fee. So if I get you a great result, you'll pay me a great fee. And then the last one, there's a fantastic mobile phone app by Luke St. Clair from Knightsbridge in Leicester. And it's called either KB-Properties or Knightsbridge Colleague. And I'll show you afterwards, but basically you go onto this mobile phone app, you put your branding on it. So you could have a by design agent on there, and it could be, right, Mr. Lindley, so you're saying that you want to go to the other agent because they're 1%, we're 2%. Well, statistically, I achieve a high percentage of asking price. And you just put it into the form with your logo on it, and it says at the bottom, this is how much extra in your pocket you'll get with me. So I am a higher fee, but actually you're going to get more money in your back pocket.
Yes, the net result of the transaction is more in their pocket.
And I think when you say it to someone, like we're talking now, they kind of still go, yeah, but you still double the fee. But when you have it in front of them and they can literally see the numbers and go, I get it. So whilst you charge more, you actually get a few percent more in the back pocket because you actually negotiate.
Stats into stories.
Stats into
It
stories.
really is. And you're very good at delivering both. And I think that's something that I think solidifies that emotional and logic decision-making process, which most people have. Just thinking about that fees, those fee conversations at the minute, I genuinely believe that this market's going to be the best for the longer term for the industry in the UK. I genuinely do. It's forcing people to make decisions, isn't it? Because when you're squeezed like you are, it pushes you, it backs you into that corner, and you have to do stuff. Otherwise, your business goes to a wall, or you've got to make people redundant, or whatever it might look like. So I genuinely think this is going to push people to decision-making processes and looking at fees. And I think as an industry, that you're right. It comes back down to what are you giving that client? Perry's example there is, we're going to give you this.
Yeah.
That's why we're worth that.
Yeah.
Knightsbridge are saying, Luke St. Clair, that's what we do. That's the evidence. What more do you need? And I think that's what we've all got to be. There's a little bit more prouder and clearer about, here are the stats. On average, we negotiate £17,000 from first offer to completion. Our fee is £7,000. You're actually £10,000 in profit if you use us,
Yeah.
So it's how you put these things across, which comes back down to belief. Then to build belief, it comes back down to stories and stats. And that's why he turns stories.
Stats. It was so close.
So good. It was so good.
That's why he turns stats.
We're not
into
editing.
stories.
We're not editing. So going back to R&D, we're ripping off and duplicating. What, in terms of what the future looks like, what are the best agents doing now that you've seen that you would recommend other agents do to improve their fees, their instruction levels, their conversions? You work with lots of agents. What are the best ones doing?
I think relentlessly consistent is a boring answer, but they are so consistent. They turn up. So it's painful to say it again, but James Scudder is an example. Perry Power is an example. Every day I open up social media. Matt, you're an example. Every day I open up social media, see something. And it might not be the best work you've ever done, but it's constantly posting so people are seeing you. So social media, and Tanya Baker has said this before, social media is actually a search engine. Like more and more people are using social media as a search engine. So going to Instagram for inspiration, ideas, same with TikTok, for example. So yeah, relentlessly consistent. But again, to do the like super sexy, exciting things like the video tours, you've got to do the hard stuff behind the scenes. So do that door knocking, send out that direct mail. So I think the best agents I work with, they're very, very active on social media. They do believe in direct mail. And I think people hear direct mail and they just think leaflets, no, actual direct mail. And a really simple one as well is getting reviews and testimonials.
Yeah.
like if you do an amazing job, get some Google reviews.
Yeah.
Like the amount of times I've had business doing what I'm doing now, when I was at Home Search, when I was an estate agent, there's several hundred Google reviews there, and it's helped. And one last point on it is when you are in the living room, so asking them, why am I here? Out of all the estate agents you could pick, why am I in your living room? And when they choose to work with you, again, out of all the agents, why did you choose me? And then that's your marketing message. Here are the 5 reasons why people are choosing to work with me at the moment. And I'll completely R&D in that from Josh Vegan in Australia. But I think that's a very good example. And then on it as well, when you're in the living room, someone might say, oh, I'm here because of a recommendation. I'm here because of a letter. But a key question to ask is, and what other marketing have you seen from me in the last 6 months? Because a letter might be the catalyst, or it might be a recommendation, but actually there's so many other touch points they've seen.
Yes.
So someone down the pub, someone at work, they've seen the boards on the road. So you just got to understand all those things. Because again, back in the day of being an agent and in the CRM, the source, Rightmove. Okay, so the seller's booked a market appraisal from Rightmove. I don't believe that. So when you're in their living room, what marketing have you seen from us? And then they tell you.
I think like so much of that is wrapped up in that 7-11 4 concept.
Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, I suppose being relentless about it is what gives agents the opportunity to have that 7 hours, 11 interactions, 4 different locations, which is what I think it's Google did the research on this. I might be wrong. And they said that that's what causes people to interact. It's kind of a theme that we've been talking about, I suppose, throughout this conversation, is having that interaction with someone before you've met them. And obviously social media being a prominent force there. Just on that particular point, with social media and the premium market, is there anything that you might know, maybe you don't, but about which platforms or which content resonates best with the premium market compared to other platforms and other content?
I think you again, marketing combination and using a few of them. So Tanya Baker is a good example. Again, she's had some crazy stats on TikTok, and she'll get the dinosaurs say, but you don't get buyers and sellers on TikTok. When actually Matt Mellor and Summer Newman had said at Sean Newman's event recently, I can't remember the exact stats, but the age group of the average user on TikTok, it was crazy. Actually, it was older than you think. People like Matt being on it, you know. But on TikTok, Tanya will get, sorry, I've done that twice now. Tanya will get someone message her and say, my daughter sent me a TikTok of you. So it's like that second connection kind of thing as well. So and there's multiple examples, but Instagram, TikTok are very good for the super sexy video image sort of content. But again, LinkedIn as an example, if I know people in my area who own high value properties, connect with them on LinkedIn. So you'd like to think if people are in multi-million pound properties, they're probably going to be in quite executive roles. Normally executive roles you associate with LinkedIn. Connect with them on LinkedIn, start liking their stuff, comment on it, engage with them. They'll hopefully do the same. Their connections will see. Again, I'm thinking of an agent in my head who does that very well and gets business off the back of it. And then Facebook, you know, there are Facebook groups out there that you can post into. Again, Perry Power is very good at it. Just adding value. And it doesn't matter what end of the market it is. Just add value, could be community-based. Ian Story does lots of video stuff. You know, sat on the sofa in his office with a colleague talking about different things. And they get loads of traction from it.
Yeah. But it's being relentlessly consistent to do it. Remember, Chris Watkins said the shortcut is the long game. So
yes, and on that from Chris, when I first launched my podcast, I was recording at 8 a.m. in the morning or 5:30 at night, so before or after work, and that was in the summer of 2022. I recorded best part of 50 podcasts over a period of 2 months, and then I started releasing 2 a week to start with. So it was just content, and in the last 18 months, there's been 1 week where I've not released a podcast. And my podcast is very different to this in that we're in a studio, it's high production, there's visual, there's audio, etc. But mine was very much rough, raw, ready, hit record, as you know from being on it, get it out there. And that's kind of been my style. I don't have intro music, I don't have outro music, straight into it. So relentlessly consistent.
Do you think, just from running your podcast there, and so you run a podcast, we run a podcast, But I suppose to a degree, we're B2B businesses. Estate agents are B2C, the consumer-facing businesses. Should they start podcasts?
Yeah, 100%. I think Ian Macbeth at Avocado is a really good example.
Yeah.
They use social media very well. They do, I think, podcasts geared towards estate agents, but then they also do ones geared towards the public as well. If I was back being an agent now, I'd immediately be doing a podcast and thinking Newport-Pagnell, interviewing the local business owners. I could literally think of, this sounds really random, but I'd go to some nice areas, some of the villages around Newport-Pagnell, and I'd just go up to people. I'd hire a cameraman and I'd go, what do you love about living here? And they'd tell me. And then you'd get some clips together.
Just random people on the street.
Random people, literally random people walking a dog. What do you love about living here? and they'd tell you, and they might say, sod off, I don't want you posting that.
Yeah.
But actually, again, you see it all over social media of these things on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
So I'll say my last question, it's a penultimate question, but come back to the start of this conversation as well, talking about what you do. What is opening the gates to more listings? If you're an estate agent listening to this and come back to what you said, maybe they've not somehow heard of you or heard from you or seen you on socials. What does opening the gates to more listings do for estate agents? Why should someone work with you?
So it's turning data into opportunities, I would say. So that could be data that's already in your business already, or it could be going out and looking at data to bring it into your business as well. So for example, let's say you've got someone, let's use Gigs & Co, for example. So 2012 launched. So one of the things I'd be looking at is, as we get towards the end of the year, right, ringing everyone who's ever bought a house through you and asking if they would like an equity update. You talk a lot about protecting equity of someone, protecting their price, not a free valuation. And again, I would say to estate agents, and I'm digressing now, but those people who've sold through Gigs & Co, how many of them have bought through another agent locally, and what's the stay in touch policy? 9 times out of 10, when I ask that, they go, I don't have one. So someone's sold through you before, bought through another agent in your town, and you don't stay in touch with them. So it's turning data into opportunities.
Succinct. You want to say the stories, don't you?
I like it. I'm stealing it.
Well, I think I've sat here and I've spent more time listening. I know Simon really well, and actually it's normally the other way round, that if I know someone, I tend to do most of the talking and vice versa. So I always listen to Simon. I've met him a number of times over the years, and I end up listening because I always think, yeah, we need to do that. And I think one of our weaknesses in our company is that we aren't taking enough of what we're being taught and putting it into action. I think there's loads of reasons for that. You can break it down. Actually, our team's a lot smaller now than it was. There's loads of different variables. But if you're looking at or watching this or listening to this, I would go back and listen to it again. That would be my recommendation. And I'd write down just one thing that Simon's come up with today that you should take away, because there's lots of opportunities in there for you to go and improve your current business and the one that you're going to maybe work on in the future.
I had a catchphrase that was on a podcast. I can't remember whose podcast or what it was, but someone said there's self-development and there's shelf development, where you hear stuff and just put it on the shelf and don't do anything with it.
Well, there's a lot of people, they post books that they've read and everything else.
Yeah.
And I always think, what about the thing that you did with it? You know, show me that, because that's what I'm more interested in. I mean, going back over today's episode, Simon's demonstrated taking ideas into action. And that is why people want to be different. Oh, I want to be different than the competition and blah, 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 blah. Take action. Go and do something different. Go and be different by doing something that you've learned. And that's the challenge for a lot of these guys out there. It can be quite overwhelming. They'll spend on average 5 hours a day scrolling instead of 5 hours a day ringing customers and asking them how they are and did they want an equity update. Imagine if you just done that for a month.
Yeah.
Would you have more valuations? 100%. Not only that bit, which is the get bit, what are you giving? You're giving inspiration to your audience. And I think that's the bit that I would say you've done brilliantly over the last 3 or 4 years, and that I've seen your consistent approach to giving content, giving value. You're not a taker. So the mindset is a complete shift to most of the industries which are commission hungry, commission breath. It's actually, no. Go out into your marketplace, give great information, great insights, great stories, things that are relevant for people's circumstances, and you'll grow your business and your reputation at the same time. Well done, mate. Honestly, it's nice to be on the other side of the, I was going to say the fence, but we're not really on a fence. We could say a gate, couldn't we?
See what you did there.
But you're a great example of someone who's just absolutely on the rise and doing great things in the industry. And I'm really proud of you, mate. So well done.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
It was all going really well until we find out what your porn star name is, though, Simon.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah.
Are you lying, or are you going to just tell you what it really is?
Well, obviously, I've listened to, I think, every episode, and yours takes some beating with Kevin Tiny. But so it's middle name and your first pet's name, right?
Yeah.
So my middle name is Richard, and anyone who went to school with my dad would call him Dick or Dickie Gates. So I'm going to say Dick rather than Richard because it goes better. But first pet was Jack, so it'd be Dick Jack or Dickie Jack.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
I'd say that's kind of top third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you?
Okay.
We've had
It's up
some
there.
real dull ones, and we've had a few that are kind of challenging the top spot.
You're always onto something with a Richard, I think. You can always work
Richard's a
with
good
that.
start, I would say.
I think
definitely.
I said when we did your podcast, because it happened to me that day that I spoke to someone who was in Cyprus, and she said, "Oh, I recognise your name from somewhere," and it was from this podcast. And she'd already been thinking about what her porn star name was when I was having the call with her. It was the strangest thing in the world, but clearly this is
Yes,
going viral for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. We might change the way the algorithms for it, just so we can get some real meat on the bone.
I think calling it an algorithm is very, very polite. So, firstly, Simon, thank you for coming on the podcast today. And also, it's been great to work with you because we've been collaborating on a number of different things. You've done some awesome workshops for us in Biodesign. We've done podcasts together. We do a newsletter together every month as well. And it's been awesome. You know your onions. You really do know your onions. And I think that anyone who's considering having a conversation with you shouldn't consider it, and they should have a conversation with you because there's so much actionable stuff they can take away from a conversation with you that would change businesses. So thank you for coming on here today. Congratulations on everything that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
It doesn't seem like you've only been in business for that amount of time. It feels like you're part of the furniture of the industry now, doesn't it?
Before he started.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good man.
So thank you, Simon, and thank you to everyone who has watched or listened to this episode of Property Porn Stars. Oh, if they've been impressed by your mustache, can they donate to your Movember? Are you doing this for Movember, or is this for today?
So it's
not, is it?
So I actually,
What the hell?
so I decided to have a shave the day before 1st November to annoy my girlfriend, and she hasn't bitten yet. But no, I do need to raise money for this, so I'm sure, I'll get a link.
I think it suits him though. I think we're going to
My
get to the 1st of
dad-
December and it's going to be
My
there.
dad had this in the 80s. I was actually looking at a wedding photo the other day, and it's very like Mark Lawrence and John Aldridge kind of vibes.
They were very popular back then, weren't they?
Dickie Gates rides again.
I went to Australia and literally moustaches were everywhere.
Yeah, it's that and the mullets, isn't it?
Yeah.
The mullet, yeah.
Anyway, we're wrapping up. There's a bit of a sidetrack there. We'll share the link for your Movember. It's very well earned and puts us to shame 8 days into November as we are today. Jesus. By the end of it, you're going to have handlebars and everything, aren't you? So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, and I'm sure you have because Simon's been an awesome guest, then please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, download, rate, comment, let us know. We'd really appreciate the feedback. And until then, we'll see you in the next episode.
See you soon.